You know that moment right before an argument explodes? That split second where you can feel everything about to go wrong and you just stand there, helpless, watching the whole thing fall apart like you had no control over it whatsoever? Yeah, I know that feeling. And I used to live in it constantly. Every single conversation that got even slightly heated would turn into a full-blown war. Not because I was a bad person, not because the people in my life were terrible, but because nobody ever taught me what was actually happening underneath those arguments. Nobody sat me down and said, hey, this is the real reason fights escalate the way they do. And without that understanding, I kept doing the same things over and over, expecting different results. But here is what changed everything for me. One sentence, a single shift in how I phrased things during tension. And the arguments just stopped. Not reduced, not got a little better, stopped. And by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly what that shift is and why it works on a psychological level that most people never even think about. Now, before I get into the full breakdown, I want to mention something quickly. If you are someone who deals with recurring conflict in your relationships, your workplace, or even inside your own head, we have a program linked in the video description below. Most people scroll past it, most people think they can figure it out alone, and most people are still having the same arguments 5 years from now that they're having today. So that is there if you want it. Now back to what actually matters right now. Let me paint you a picture of what my life looked like before I figured this out. Picture the kitchen. Dinner is getting cold. The other person says something that feels like a criticism. Maybe it is about something small, the dishes, being late, forgetting something. It does not even matter what it was. What matters is what happened inside me the moment I heard it. My chest tightened, my brain went into this instant scanning mode, like a radar trying to find every possible piece of evidence that I was being attacked. And then my mouth opened, and I defended myself. Hard. And the moment I defended myself, the other person felt like they were not being heard, so they pushed harder. And I pushed back harder. And suddenly we were not even talking about the dishes anymore. We were dragging up things from 3 months ago, a year ago, things that had nothing to do with dishes. And both of us were exhausted, both of us were hurt, and absolutely nothing got resolved. If that sounds familiar to you, I want you to really sit with that for a second. Because that cycle is not a personality flaw. It is not because your relationship is broken or because you are fundamentally bad at communicating. It is because your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is protect you. The problem is it cannot tell the difference between a real threat and a disagreement with someone you love. Here is what nobody talks about. When someone comes at you with frustration or criticism, your brain registers it the same way it would register physical danger. Your heart rate goes up. Your thinking brain literally goes partially offline. And you shift from being a person who can have a rational conversation to a person who is in survival mode. And you cannot reason your way through survival mode. You cannot outlogic a nervous system that thinks it is under attack. So what is the one-sentence shift? It is this. Instead of defending yourself or explaining yourself or trying to correct the other person's perception, you say something that communicates you are on their side before anything else happens. That is it. That is the whole thing on the surface. But let me go deeper because the mechanics of this are what make it so powerful. When you are in an argument and you immediately defend yourself, what the other person's brain hears is not your words. What it hears is threat. Their system escalates. You escalate in response, it becomes a loop. But the moment you insert something that signals safety, that signals I am not your enemy right now, their nervous system does not have to fight anymore. And when someone does not have to fight, they stop fighting. Now I know what you are thinking. You are thinking that sounds nice in theory, but you do not know my situation. You do not know how intense things get. You do not know how fast it escalates or how stubborn the other person is or how many times you have already tried to be the bigger person and it did not work. And you are right. I do not know your specific situation. But here is what I do know. The approach you have been using has not worked consistently. And I know that because if it had, you would not be here watching this. So something has to change. And the change does not start with the other person. It starts with the sentence that comes out of your mouth first. Here is a real example of what this looks like in practice. Imagine someone says to you in a sharp tone, "You never actually listen to me." Old response, "I do listen to you, you just never notice when I do." And now you are off to the races. Both of you are hurt. Both of you are defensive. Nobody wins. New response? Something like, "It sounds like you have been feeling really unheard and that matters to me." That is the shift. Not agreeing that you are wrong. Not apologizing for something you did not do. Just acknowledging that their experience is real to them. Because here is the thing. People do not need you to agree with them to feel heard. They just need to know that you see them. And when someone feels seen, the argument loses its oxygen. It cannot survive in that environment. The tension drops, their shoulders go down, their voice gets quieter, and now you are actually talking to each other instead of at each other. I started tracking this in my own life. The first week I used this consistently, I had 3 situations that would have previously turned into massive fights that just quietly dissolved. 3 in 1 week. People around me started commenting that I seemed different somehow. More grounded. Easier to be around. I did not feel like I was walking on eggshells anymore because I finally had something to stand on. And here is the deeper layer that took me longer to understand. This shift is not just about stopping arguments in the moment. It actually rewires how the people in your life relate to you over time. When someone repeatedly feels safe with you during tension, they stop bracing for impact when they are around you. The defensiveness starts to lower on their side too. Relationships that felt chronically exhausting start to feel like they have room to breathe. The cost of not knowing this is not just a few uncomfortable conversations. The real cost is measured in years. Years of tension. Years of distance. Years of lying awake at night replaying arguments in your head and wondering what you could have said differently. The emotional weight of that is enormous, and most people carry it for so long that they just accept it as normal. They think this is just how relationships are. It is not. I promise you, it is not. The people who have genuinely transformed how they handle conflict report the same things over and over. Less anxiety before hard conversations. More trust in their closest relationships. A feeling of actual control in moments that used to feel completely out of control. And that sense of control is not something you can put a price on, because when you feel capable of navigating tension, every single area of your life gets easier. Think about the time you spend in your head after an argument, the hours you lose replaying it, the mental energy you burn trying to figure out where it went wrong, the sleep you lose, the focus you lose at work the next day. Now imagine reclaiming that. Not gradually over years of therapy, but starting from the next conversation you have that starts going sideways. Here is something that consistently surprises people when they first use this approach. The other person does not feel manipulated, they feel relieved. And that is because what you are doing is not a trick. It is not a technique you put on like a mask. It is a fundamental truth, which is that people want to feel understood more than they want to win. When you give them that, something real shifts, and they often do not even know why, they just know they feel better around you. Now let me be direct with you about something. This sounds simple because it is simple in concept, but applying it in real time, in the heat of the moment, when your chest is tight and your brain wants to fire back, that is where the real work is. That is where most people fall apart and go back to their old patterns. Because knowing something and actually doing it under pressure are completely different things. That gap between knowing and doing is what costs people the most, and it is exactly what the program we have linked in the description below is designed to close. Not for everyone. Honestly, if you are someone who is comfortable with the way things are, or if you think the other people in your life are the only ones who need to change, this is probably not for you. But if you are someone who is genuinely tired of the cycle, who wants to stop losing days and energy and connection to conflict that should not have the power it has over you, then it is worth at least looking at what is there. Because the people who have gone through it are not just having fewer arguments. They are showing up differently in every relationship they have, at home, at work, and themselves. And they started from exactly where you are right now. You already took the first step by watching this far. You already know there is something worth changing. The only question left is whether you are going to act on that or let it sit in the back of your mind while another year goes by that looks exactly like the last one. The link is in the description. It is there right now. What you do with it is entirely up to you.